Jennifer Fernandez, and I work with biofood products. Commonly known for our production in yogurt, fresh milk, and we also have an extension of cooking cream, whipping cream. I can go on and on and on. At Bio, I represent, I'm head of dairy development and consumer experience. It sounds like a long term, but I talk a lot with our farmers, a lot with our consumers, because for me, it is about delighting our consumers. And what is it at Biofoods that we do? We want to build a better tomorrow, not for ourselves, but for every one of us, our children, because we want a better tomorrow. We're building a world where everyone has access to safe, nutritious, and healthy food. Key word is safe here, now and in the future. And how are we doing this? We provide our families all over the country and even across the borders with the cleanest, healthiest, and best tasting products, because we want to honestly delight you with delicious products that are safe, nutritious, and good for your health. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sagar Malde. I'm the CEO of True Foods. As Paul just mentioned, True Foods manufactures Zesta jams, sauces, peanut butter. We also have another brand, Cannelon. I believe everybody has had that, which is tomato paste, all the canned vegetables. We also do drinking chocolate with the brand name called Choco Primo. We also do golden biscuits. We've just bought it 3 years ago, and we now also manufacture biscuits. So as a whole, True Foods, for True Foods, we would like to give the consumer an experience of quality, mainly, where everybody that consumes not only just consumes because it's of really good quality, but also provides nutrition to their bodies. And that's exactly what True Foods wants to deliver to all the customers today. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Devon. I'm part of the family of Broadway Group of Companies, which is primarily Broadway Bakery and Bakex Millers. So we're into the manufacturing of bread and wheat flour products. Our group has been around for over 65 years. So, we've gone through a lot of phases with this Kenyan economy. And I'm here today representing the family. We're a third-generation family business. I head business development for the group, amongst a couple of other things, and very happy to be supporting AFMASS this year. Thanks.
Good morning, everybody. Can't hear you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Bridge Raja. I'm the CEO of Maisha Beverages Limited. We are the manufacturers of Hola carbonated soft drinks and energy drinks. And we're just over 3.5 years old. We've been in this market, and our aim in this market is to bring the consumer choice. We believe that the markets have changed. Consumers are more discerning, and they're crying out for choice. Gone are the days where we just stuck to the traditional flavors. We want to bring innovative flavors, which are quality products, and that's what we believe in at Maisha Beverages. Thank you.
So maybe we can start with your Bridge, because you're the final panelist to speak about now beverages. So in your opinion, how is the investment climate in Africa, especially after now COVID-19? How does it look for you?
Sure. I think we'll all agree that the COVID pandemic took the world by shock. Nobody knew how to deal with it. Nobody knew what was coming next. Nobody even knew if they were going to survive tomorrow. And there were lots of methods that were put in place globally, locally, across Africa, across the world. And everybody had their own idea of how they're going to get out of this pandemic. What I feel about Africa, and especially about Kenya, is that we are robust. I think we're all blessed with great mindsets. We also in Kenya have a strong infrastructure system compared to the rest of Africa. And more than anything else, I think that the education base of this country is very strong, which helps us because our manpower has a strong skill set. If you see in the technology space, we're considered the Silicon Valley of Africa, which helps businesses, which helps industries, and which helps investments in this country. You know, the other thing that's very important is that we have a strong and stable political environment compared to a lot of other countries that I see in the world. That is obviously what is important when people are looking at local investment or also foreign investment. And the last thing, I think this is one of the most important things, is that we have a strong and growing middle class and a youthful population, which provides an amazing investment opportunity for any investor looking to come into Africa or into Kenya especially. Yeah, that being said, I think we have strong fundamentals. We have a strong mindset of our working class, and we're a hardworking nation which provides for a positive future.
So maybe now we can talk to Devon. Devon, you guys have invested in new machinery and equipment recently, and what does that tell about the investment climate in this region?
Yeah, I think you know, Bridge spoke about the investment climate more generally. I think on a more personal level, with Broadway, we've put up 2 new bread plants in the last 3 years. One was actually during COVID, which was a challenge. I mean, it's probably the first time the company that we got the plant from had to remotely commission a bread plant. And it was very, very, very different, very unique, a really good experience. We've also set up a new plant which is being commissioned currently as we speak. So we've had 2 big investments within the last 3 years. And that, I think, just speaks volumes about what we feel about the investment climate. Yes, there are challenges around. Yes, COVID was and is still a challenge. But at the end of the day, you've got to satisfy your consumer demand. And if you have the liquidity, if you have the ability, don't wait for these opportunities. Do them now. That's my thinking. And we're very happy that we continued with that project during COVID, because if we had waited, we would have probably lost out a bit in the market. So yeah, my advice is, if you can and you're able to, you know, do it. Don't wait.
So maybe we'll just move next to Saga. Saga, maybe tell us how after COVID, are we still consuming jams? Is the market growing? How do you see it from where you sit?
I think to answer that, firstly, I think people are known of Zesta jams since their, I think, since their grandparents' time.
Yeah, we grew up with it.
Yes, everybody has grown up with Zesta jams. But essentially, I think post-COVID, what we've experienced, we've seen huge growth in terms of our demand for our products. Like Bridge and Devan has just talked about, the investment potential within Kenya is huge. The fundamentals all work up. However, there are some disadvantages that as Kenya we have. For example, we've got the electricity bill rising over the last few years. Today or the last few months, we've had KPLC increase their prices again. I mean, that deters us. All those are price increments which we will pass on to the consumer. And for jams in specific, it's a luxury sometimes that people will want to buy only if they can afford or the disposable income allows. That in itself has to increase in price due to just not raw materials price increasing, but also the infrastructure pricing increasing within the country. That in itself is deterring or reducing our demand. And that's something that we're trying to improve in terms of having, improving our cost fundamentals within the company to see how we can best absorb those costs rather than to give it out to the consumer such that our demand still stays. So that's one of the disadvantages that we're staying with in Kenya today.
Okay, we'll come to how to handle that. I'd want to give Fernandez an opportunity to speak. Now, post-COVID, are we still in the milk vibe? Are we drinking milk?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. What we've seen is there is a growing demand for nutritious food, and definitely the dairy industry has a big role to play. We say yes and no to dairy, but there is a huge demand in the market for dairy, and we've seen it grow. We've actually increased as bio our product range. Our milk products are flying off the shelves, our fresh milk, and we can see that. And the reason we see a lot of people steering towards dairy is about the nutritional value that it brings to you in terms of the calcium, the protein, etc., and availability in the country. And one of the things that we see very strongly is that while the cost of investment in the country for industries is very high, we need to look towards inward how we can actually reduce our costs through sustainability activities, doing solar, supporting our farmers, wastewater management, etc., that can actually bring value to the products that we give our consumers. And that is very key for us because we want our consumers to have availability of products. We saw COVID come in and we saw people steering to healthy foods, going back to the kitchen, cooking. You know, that is incredible, you know? And we need to nurture that because we need to have a healthy lifestyle. Very important for us.
Okay, now there's something that I'm seeing. There's a whole, we are all optimistic that the environment is good. And actually, Bridge started during just almost, the pandemic was just right at the door. And Devon, you guys are actually expanding during the pandemic. Maybe you tell us, maybe starting with Devon, what is unique about Africa? We did not die as they had expected, and as business was shrinking, we're seeing that these guys were actually investing. So what is this unique about Africa that makes us to be growing even in adversity?
Well, I think we did die. Some of us definitely did, but the pandemic affected us. I wouldn't say it affected us less. I think just data was not there to tell us how much it affected us. However, in Africa, I think there are much bigger problems than COVID. And that is why we were able to be resilient. Yes, from very early on, mask wearing was compulsory. I think that was brilliant. A lot of people worked from home, which again was good. I could not work from home. Even though I locked myself in my office, I went to work. And very early on, people realized, yes, this is a global issue, but we have more challenging things to sort out in Africa, which is putting food on the table. So I think the balance of government intervention as well as people's thinking just played a part, and we carried on being as normal as possible. And the thing is, in adversity, there's always opportunities. So how do we see that? I think Africa is brilliant for that. When everybody else maybe does not really the easy thing, but they're probably the safer thing and lock themselves up, we see that as an opportunity. How do we go out and how do we actually make the best use of this? Lots of people, even in the medical field, set up plants overnight for making masks, for different sorts of medication to help support our initiative and our fight against COVID. So I think in general, the biggest thing here is that there are just bigger issues than COVID that we faced. And we had to, sort of not ignore it, not put it on the back, but yes, it's still at the forefront, but live with it. And that's the biggest thing. We did live with it, we are living with it, and we'll continue living with it.
So now, maybe Bridge, you give your take on that. You guys are, unlike Devon, we know we eat bread every morning. But then juice, we usually eat, when you're drinking carbonated soft drink, it's more of a luxury to us. How do you survive? How did you survive during that time and even right now?
I think that's a very important distinction, that we fall into the luxury bracket. We are not a commodity. If you can do without us, you will. I mean, if you can't afford to buy a soft drink, you just can't afford to buy it. It's not something that you have to have. how did we change? How did we change people's perceptions? Firstly, I think it's going back to what our firm's ethos is, that we believe in giving a quality product at an affordable price. We print on every bottle, save your shilling, prosper. We want the Kenyan nation to prosper right from the bottom level all the way to the top. I mean, when I look at my product, everyone always asks me, what demographic are you targeting? And I always say that, you know what, I want it to cut across all segments. I want that the loader who's loading the truck will be able to drink it, the sales manager, the sales executive, and the director and the CEO will also drink the same product. Why? Because of its affordability, but also because of its quality. I don't want that tomorrow morning when somebody, a small child drinks my drink, they wake up with a sore throat, because that's a hidden cost. You're going to be paying for medication. You're going to be paying for other things. You're going to be paying for doctor's fees. I want to provide a quality product that if you put it on the shelf in Germany or in the USA or in the UK, it stands its own ground. And that's what I think that all Kenyan industries can do and are doing. We are moving towards a place where quality products are coming onto our shelves, and quality products are coming onto our shelves, and Kenyan manufacturing and Kenyan industries are getting onto the map.
Could I add to that?
Yeah.
I think Africa is very strong. We have weathered a lot through the years. Severe drought, severe famine, civil strife, whatever has been thrown at us. We're very resilient, and I think that has developed innovation from us. And we were able to get through COVID because we looked at how we internally, how we could save our people, our countries, how we can do better of ourselves. And we turn things around. We have talent within our continent. We have resources. And now we're seeing the potential that we have. Very important for us to remember. Resilience, talent, resource. We have it right here.
I want to invite Saga to speak, and you're very honest with us that really costs are going up and probably it's affecting the cost of producing. But then Devan actually said that whenever there are opportunities, there are also challenges. So that takes me to like the next question. Like when you look at the Africa and the kind, we are having issues with electricity and so many other costs. So what opportunities do you see that we can actually grasp so that we can continue producing affordable product at a quality product, but then which are affordable to us?
Thanks for that question. I think in Kenya itself, the middle class is growing. I think people are more educated. And with that, what we are trying to do is to bring in not only just quality products, but products that actually people relate to. For example, we've just launched the no sugar added jams. Those jams are basically a lot of people are suffering from diabetes or all the other illnesses that are there. What we did in access to just doing no sugar added jams, we started fortifying it with zinc. What that does is it helps you build your immune system. We all remember when we were having COVID, we were having zinc tablets or zinc in vitamin C, etc. So these are the things that what we're trying to do is bring in products which are made for the consumer, and that will not only just put something on a bread, but also improve the healthiness of the body for the consumer. That's something that we're looking at. In addition to that, what we're also doing, our drinking chocolate, for example, for Choco Primo, what we did was a lot of people are turning non-dairy, sorry to say. But with that new concept that's coming up because of what cows go through and all of that, what we did is we brought up a new product which is called Choco Burst, which has 3-in-1, which has a non-dairy creamer as well. So it's just putting in the powder, mixing it with milk, no need for sugar, and a person can have tea at an affordable price. So those are small innovative things that we as True Foods are trying to do in order to beat the different things that Kenya throws at us, the government throws at us.
Okay, they have a non-dairy too, just in case. So I wanted to maybe now ask. We've had the Ukraine-Russian war, and it really disrupted supply chain, especially for some of the commodities that we mostly consume. We've had the war in Sudan that is threatening to disrupt the disruption of gamma arabica that maybe some of you use. And we don't know what's going to come next, really. And we also have climate change at the corner that is really knocking and probably might throw our supply chain off balance. So maybe we start with Devon, because Ukraine must have affected you guys. So maybe you tell us, and you guys will also weigh in on this, what strategies have been or could be adapted by food companies to ensure that our food supply chains remain robust and are able to withstand any shock that may be thrown at us in future.
Yeah, firstly, regarding the Sudan war, one thing that led out of it was my plane being diverted to the center of Africa, so you can see the beautiful Sahara, which I've not seen in a long time. But no, in all seriousness, I think with Russia and Ukraine, obviously it's a bedrock for wheat. And yes, it did affect the entire wheat industry, but again, it affected the entire wheat industry, so not just us. It was a global issue. The good thing is, again, we have lots of sources of wheat, and you've just got to look for them. So we've been able to have good relationships with all trading houses, and we're able to then have that. If you have spare capacity, you're able to get the wheat that you need, even if it's a little bit more expensive, but get enough of it and store it. So again, one of the opportunities here is, if you have the ability, have spare capacity. We realized this over COVID, where we were literally running all our bread plants flat out, and we just didn't even have time to literally stop them and service them. So again, putting up a new bread plant just gives us that little bit of flexibility. When we have surprise demand, we know we have that capacity. Same with wheat silos. So we've had wheat silos, we've installed them, we have good capacity. So yes, we were not getting wheat or getting sufficient wheat or getting wheat at a very expensive rate from Russia and Ukraine, but there was wheat in other places, and it's just a question of being able to be smart about it, being able to plan. You know, we know millers that who are not, thankfully not in Kenya, we know millers that literally are buying wheat on a monthly basis, which you can't do. You have to buy wheat and sort of store it long term for different issues that could occur. So having spare capacity is very, very important. You don't have to run your plants at 100% capacity all the time, because if you do that and you do have surprise demand, or you do have an issue like this, then obviously you'll be in a bit of a problem.
So you're saying we just have spare capacity?
Yeah, I think having a little bit of spare capacity is extremely important. I mean, everybody talks about being operationally efficient and running everything at 100% capacity. Well, it's basically a flip. So that, yes, will give you efficiency in the short term, but you'll not be able to then take advantage of these different spikes when they arise.
Now, Bridge and Saga, what do you think else we should actually do to actually ensure we have a more robust food supply chain in the continent? Maybe start with Bridge.
I think I'd like to bring my mother into this at one point. She's always told me education, 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 because I feel that education is one asset you can never strip from anybody. That will stay with them for the rest of their lives. And I think that education is an important tool to show people the potential of what they can achieve. We need to educate people on sustainable practices, because that makes things long term. If we look at the short term and we're too fixated on getting through the next year or the next 2 years or the next 5 years, that will not in turn lead to sustainable practices. Whether we talk about sustainable farming or we talk about sustainable industries or sustainable business models. These are things that people need to know and need to practice in reality. The farming side of it, Jennifer very rightly said that we're blessed with an abundance of resources in Africa. We need to know how to value add to those resources, not just take them out and export them away, because we are losing out on that. If we just export our raw materials, we lose out. We need to do value addition in Africa. We need to build sustainable practices that if we're cutting down our forests, make sure that we're replanting them, because that will feed generations to come. And I think that's what's very important, and I think that many of our industries and our companies have to hold that at the center of our minds whenever we're developing anything.
Sustainable practices. I'm going to be picking 1 point from each guy. What is your opinion, Saga?
I think, look at the irony. Ukraine, which is 50 times smaller than Africa, and we depend on wheat. The whole world depends on wheat from them. And when the war comes, we're all at tetherheads. Like, what do we do? I mean, Africa itself has nearly 60% of Africa has good arable land. I mean, you can farm. Why can we not have good practices within Kenya which motivates or gives the farmers that education, like they've rightly said, to grow some of our staple stuff in good quantities such that we can also be not a net importer, but a net exporter of these crops. I'll give you an example. We, True Foods, imports a lot of tomato paste, for example, from Egypt. In Kenya, we've got some good areas, which is maybe in Taveta, Central, Loitoktok, which have good soil to plant tomatoes. Why can we not sustain ourselves in Kenya to produce enough tomatoes to have tomato paste and have an industry where the government supports for us to invest in that tomato paste plant to produce it here? A second example is cornstarch. Cornstarch, our staple food is maize, but we do not have enough maize such that we're still importing maize from outside. Why? We don't also have an industry that can convert the maize or corn into cornstarch today. With the last industry we had shut down in the 90s, and there's none that has come up. So these are the small things that if the government helped and also put in practices, such as even putting in, we had long ago in the 80s, practices like having officers, extension officers, who would go to different farmers or different areas and teach them that this is crop rotation, this is how you store these goods such that they don't go bad, this is what you should grow, this is how you can make profits out of it, etc., etc. If those are practices that we can do, Kenya can be much far, can be further. We could actually be the net exporter of certain things. But today in Kenya, we rely on a lot of importation. So if, for example, if we worked on all of that, I know it's long term, maybe 20 years, 30, 50, but if we start now, we can actually become a nation where Africa can be dependent, not dependent on anybody outside, but it's dependent on itself. It can actually sustain itself.
So local sourcing. So Jennifer has been nodding this the entire time because Bio has been doing something around that. Maybe you could tell us, how does your company actually try to shield itself from all the supply chain shocks that we might be having?
So, first I have to say Bridge and Saga have nailed it. Literally, we're able to do, set up industries in our countries, invest in our agriculture, create awareness, educate our farmers, because that is where we will nail it. Have governments, policymakers set up lucrative ways in which people can invest in agriculture. Agriculture is important for our countries. It's our time. It's important. And what have we done as Bio? We've looked within ourselves and looked at where the possibilities are, where would it hit us if something were to go wrong. If power was to go down today, we've set up solar, water, looking at boreholes, farming, securing our farmers, ensuring they're paid in time, ensuring they have continuity. These are very important. We face one of the biggest hits, like everybody else, with the Ukraine war. But we became innovative. We looked within ourselves, we looked at how we can change and do things differently, but give you the same product that delights you. You need to have a plan, you need to have backup, you need to have stock. Absolutely. You need to plan for tomorrow. Don't get caught off guard. Always look ahead. Don't look just right below your nose. Look ahead. Plan. And you will get through it. You'll weather that storm. We're able to do that. And we want that for you.
No, I think actually, everybody has put that across quite well. And one thing that's, it's very impressive to see is that the future of Africa is the youth. And it's amazing to have a panel that is very youthful, in my opinion. We are now hopefully future leaders. And having that at the forefront of our thinking, I think is extremely, extremely important. Using the learnings from the previous generation, having their guidance, but then now executing plans based on that. This is now the future, really. So, it's very, very nice to see a more youthful panel, speaking.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I have also noticed the moment you say that I'm also a youth. So, yes, the elders are listening to us today, which is quite nice. Jennifer, you are youth today. We are going to co-opt you into this youthful gang of individuals who are really trying to do something for Africa. Now, I want to go to the last question before the second last question. We have the African Continental Free Trade Area. I think a week ago we had the Ghana Expo here, where we had a number of companies from Ghana really come here and try to showcase their product. Some were very small. There were even the smallest of businesses, they were around with their products. So I want to ask, from where you sit, you guys are the business people, you're the ones who make these decisions. Does this continent area actually create an opportunity for us? One, is it real? Is it real? Are you guys really seeing it? And then secondly, if it is, what opportunities are available for us or for you as manufacturers that can be exploited by people in that area? So maybe we start with Devon as we go by. And I was saying bridge. We bridge and then we just go to the next.
Yes, definitely. I think any trade agreements, firstly, are important, but they also have to be well structured and well thought out. This trade agreement has the potential to increase intra-Africa exports by almost 81%, I was reading somewhere. And they're predicting by 2035 that almost $450 billion worth of income will be generated through this agreement. What it really does, in essence, is open up new markets. Every business, every industry is always looking for new markets. At the end of the day, we want to grow market share within our own countries, but also export-led growth as well. What else does it bring to the table? It brings shared innovation and shared technology. I mean, when we have companies coming from Ghana over here, it's not that they're just coming to sell their products, but they're also sharing their ideas, they're sharing their people, and the same goes vice versa. Of course, what else, my final point is that it increases competition. And I always believe that competition is good, because what does competition drive? It drives quality. And that is always good for the consumer. When there's increased competition, companies are forced to innovate, they're forced to improve, and the products get better, which is always better for the end consumer.
do we see Broadway going to Ghana?
No, not yet. As much as this is a fantastic idea, I think I'm a little bit more skeptical. Will we really see the full implementation of this Trade Act in our lifetime? I highly doubt it. To me, it's too good to be true. And when something is too good to be true, it generally doesn't work. So yeah, I mean, I was in Kigali in 2017 for a CEO forum, and you know, this was a hot topic at that time. I think, again, it's a very, very good idea. It's just, I think, personally for me, it doesn't work in Africa. I think we do business a little bit differently. We're a much larger in terms of geographically as well as population. I think if they had this and they tried to block out different areas, that might be better, and starting a bit smaller. I mean, to be fair, we haven't really implemented the EAC treaty properly. How are we going to implement the whole African treaty properly? So I think for me, it's, and again, we don't export, so it doesn't really affect us that much, but obviously, and we aren't looking at entering other countries yet. But I think where I sit, for me, it's just a little bit too skeptical, and it's a little bit too good to be true.
Too good to be true. So it's a wait and see.
It's a wait and see. I mean, these things take years and years and years to perfect. You know, if a whole bloc like the EU isn't perfecting it as well as it can, I mean, what hope, honestly, do we have, to be fair?
Saga, are you also waiting and seeing, or you're a little bit more optimistic?
Truthful to be said, I think I share what Devan just said. I think if we're not able to implement EAC today, how are we going to go the whole Africa to get implemented? Today we still have a lot of challenges just to go to Tanzania with all the duties and structures and all of that they have. However, that being said, True Foods, we export to many countries across Africa. We go all the way to Zambia, we also go to Ethiopia, we go to Sudan in the war. We're helping the people there through the UN. So I think opportunities lie, yes. However, to answer your question, I think it will take a long time before Africa becomes one. I think that's what Africa suffers from. I think Africa suffers from all these wars, not only just climate change, but all the different political instabilities to just having poverty. All of that really affects us to grow. And therefore, I think in the lifetime of ours, I don't think we can see it. But maybe as people get educated and things get better, maybe Africa can go to that level, but not now.
Okay, now that you export to a number of countries in Africa. Yes, there is a little bit of hesitation from the panel here because they're actually doing business. Then I wanted to just ask maybe, do you see maybe not a completely free market where goods move, but then do you think things will be a little bit better? Because Bridge has really done a good illustration of what could be. So do you see it easing a bit or just nothing?
I think as Kenya, we might suffer a little bit because of our costs being high. If I go to South Africa, if I go to Egypt, the cost of electricity, the cost of fuel is also cheap. So for them to export at really low prices, it's very easy, and they can actually take over the whole Africa market. Whereas with Kenya, we kind of suffer with all the costs that we have. So in that way, I think we'll still be disadvantaged. However, I think in certain products, yes, the expertise that we have and the talent that we have, not only as True Foods, but all the people sitting here in the panel, I think we can export some of our talent out there. But I think as a whole, Kenya might suffer a bit.
Jennifer, are you as optimistic?
I literally, they've said it all. I'm with them. It's very difficult at this point in time, especially when I'm speaking from a Kenyan perspective. like they say, the cost of processing is very high, and we can see ourselves losing industry because of injection of export coming in. Cheap products because they can do it, and that could kill our market at the end of the day. While as it could also help and vice versa. So I think it is very, we're treading on unsure ground right about now, and it's very important for the governments to put proper regulations of what comes into the countries for that.
Bridge has something to add.
I just think to add to what my colleagues have said, there are still a lot of inefficiencies that we suffer from. I read somewhere the other day that the Mombasa port in 2021 was ranked 296 out of 348 ports globally. Today in 2023, it slipped down to 326 in the global rankings. So these sort of things don't help us as industries in Kenya. If we're going to talk about being an export-led economy, we need the infrastructure and the efficiencies in our ports, in our taxation systems and our frameworks. I mean, we're at a strange point in time where I feel that the taxation framework is almost at the crux of the Laffer curve. I mean, we're overburdening compliant industries with over-taxation, whereas we're not looking for the loopholes or the people who aren't paying the taxes to bring into the tax net. These are small things that really make industries that are running well and efficiently suffer and take a step back, and also don't allow us to be competitive on the actual global scale.
That actually, that conversation brings me to my last question. You guys have really talked about how you're not really upbeat about this after thing, and there are valid concerns of what you've raised, and one of them is we're not really competitive as a country right now, and it might probably we are better off staying the way we are than opening up the border to everything. So now the last question would be what policy and regulatory changes are necessary, in your opinion, that would be necessary to promote investment in Africa and to actually even encourage this trade? Because as Bridge did his research, you guys have noticed. So from what Bridge has really painted for us, it's really a very nice picture. So what policy and regulatory changes do you think are necessary to actually improve the investment climate in this region? Maybe we'd start with Saga.
I think in terms of policies, I think we've spoken about it, where actually the government should be working with the farmers, having something there. I think in addition to that, there should be a regulatory environment in such a way that importations into the country are looked up into. For example, we get a lot of competition from other countries, and then they are duty-free as well. So we cannot even produce, or we become very uncompetitive on that. So that's another regulatory something that the government should look at. Overall, I think within Kenya, I think what is most important is to have favorable policies in order to have international companies. I just read somewhere as well, Barry Callebaut, which produces cocoa powder, has set up a plant in Morocco. Why not Kenya? Why? Why can we not do that? Or why can we not have a corn starch manufacturing company come here into Kenya? These are things that which the government needs to look at in order to ensure that they are actually inviting investors rather than actually shooing them away due to all these unreasonable high costs that we suffer from.
Maybe we give a Bridge a point to actually tell us. While you're talking about the earlier discussion, you really did raise a point about taxes and how they are almost crippling everyone that is doing business. So what do you think we should do beyond that to actually make this climate better? Because as Ali said, when we have more players, then you have more competition and innovation and quality products. What should be done?
Look, firstly, I think that taxation is important. Taxation allows our country to develop. It allows a lot of development projects to happen, and people have to pay their taxes. I'm not saying no to taxes because I think that that's the wrong tune to be singing. We have to bring in compliance, and how does that work? We have to educate people on filing their returns, declaring the right taxes, but it will only happen if taxation is at a reasonable level. If we put taxation at such a high level that it's actually going to push people towards illicit products or illicit goods, people at the end of the day are always going to find those opportunities. It has to be a reasonable thing. The other thing that is really important is the ease of doing business in this country. The government really has to work on really streamlining the red tape that all of us face. I mean, if I just looked at NEMA the other day and I was looking through the licenses that I have to renew, I have 7 different licenses for one regulatory body, which can easily be rolled into one. We look at other ways, I mean, distribution permits. Every county that my vehicles go to, I have to apply for a separate distribution permit from every single county. I mean, that's a result of the devolution that has happened. But at the same time, they have to make it easy for companies to operate within Kenya. At the end of the day, I'm not even talking about exports or operating within Africa, but operating within our own country. They have to make the ease of doing business better.
What do you think we should do? What do you think the government should do in terms of policy to actually improve the investment climate?
Yeah, I think just to echo what Bridge said, we have 47 counties. That's, I don't know how many states there in the US, but that's probably the same amount of states there in the US, and the US is what? So many times bigger. So as much as devolution was a great idea, yeah, I mean, even for us, even for a roadshow truck to pass from here to Kisumu, it's passing so many counties, and we need to get so many different licenses just for the truck to pass. I mean, it's just, it doesn't make any sense. So ease of doing business for sure. Another thing is infrastructure. I mean, Kenya has 60 million people plus, I'm sure by now. And us being in this industry for over 60 years, we have still not covered the whole of Kenya. Why is that? Because of infrastructure. We only went to Mombasa 3 years ago because the road started being relatively decent to go to. It's still not a decent journey though. The truck still takes 8-10 hours to get there. We actually went to the SGR and asked them, why can we not get a cabin and actually put bread in that cabin and take the bread by train? It'll be safer, you know, you won't have to worry about drivers driving. There was just no thinking about that. So I think infrastructure and logistics has to be something that we know we need to look at collectively. How do we get to northern Kenya safely and fast to be able to deliver bread, which we are not doing at the moment? So we still have such a big untapped market here. Another reason why we've put up more capacity is because we want to try and find the way to get bread to the different parts that we aren't in.
Jennifer, what should we do to actually make our investment better here?
So something else, I think everybody has said everything I could even have said, but very important is to hear the voice of the consumers. Consumers are demanding better quality products. And if we set regulations to improve on quality, we set the bar higher and higher. Therefore, we create products that are demanded even outside our borders. Very critical, and we require the government to help us with regulation and policies to ensure that industries produce quality products for the consumers as a whole. We see, like in my experience, sometimes we find where the farmer struggles with source of quality feed for the animals. We need regulations to help with that. because sometimes you don't have a source of feed for your animals and you're stuck with a low quality grade. We need support from the government, and we need to hear the voices of the consumer at the end of the day.
Jennifer is really championing for consumers. She wants standards so that we can actually produce more better quality products. I would want to take this point to actually invite the audience. You guys have been wonderful listeners so far. I don't know if any of you has a question for our panelists this morning. I'll take like 3 and then we can wrap it up. Do we have any questions? We have one here. Is there anyone who has? There's a second one. Do we have a third one? Okay, we have 3 questions. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Nina Hamid. Company called Food Safe International, and I'm based in Botswana. I was supposed to be here yesterday to be on the panel, but logistics and things happened and I didn't get here in time. I have a few comments to make, and I hope I have the time for it. First of all, thank you for your contributions, and it's been enlightening for me to hear what's happening here in Kenya. I'm originally from Tanzania, and East Africa is home to me. But as an elder and not a youth, I tend to disagree with some of the things that have brought up. My question is, why are you still dependent on the government to run your businesses? Why and where are the government today? You're talking to the audience here. Where's the government? Are they listening to what you're saying? Have you approached them directly, or are you just sitting back and complaining that the government's not assisting? I'm just asking. I don't know the answer. I'm not criticizing. I want to know, what actions have you actually taken? Secondly, I think it's Saga, you mentioned about tomato paste production and having to import from other parts of the world. Again, it's the mentality that causes us to think that if it comes from a foreign, first world or European country or other parts of the world, it's going to be far superior than what we have here. Somebody mentioned about Ghana coming in. I've been to Ghana. I cover the whole continent with my consultancy and training. So I've been to most of the African countries, and I've seen, sorry, I should have said I'm a food safety specialist, consultant and trainer in food safety. So coming back to that, we have run EU regional workshops in harmonizing the food safety standards, especially for this cross-border exchange of products, and having the confidence that if it's coming from Ghana or Zambia or wherever, we're going to have the same standards and quality and the nutritional value added to it as well. So rather than looking overseas always, support the local ones. Maybe you're saying they don't have enough to support your business, but help them grow. So we shouldn't be waiting. We're, been independent for a long time in East Africa. There's lots of potential. The agriculture, horticulture market in Kenya was excellent, doing a lot of exportation. But like you said, politically and corruption takes over, and we lose out in the long run. And my last comment is, I appreciate you trying to promote your products. And the panel I should have been on yesterday was about communication and how to bring across your products' safety and quality and nutritional value. However, sometimes you're more thinking about how to encourage and engage the consumers in buying your product, and just saying because we add zinc to it, our product is healthy, or because it's a dairy-based product, it's got calcium, so on. That is not the point. Look at what you're producing. Look at whether it's really suitable for the consumer. Are there sugary, processed drinks that are being promoted all the time, energy drinks and all of that, are they really required? Why can't we go to the basics where you can be far more healthier eating naturally produced foods which are preserved and stored correctly without having to be going through so much processing and then having to fortify it with other products? So coming to the milling industry, if you're refining your flours and product so much that you're now having to add in the nutrients is defeating the purpose. So let's look at what you're producing, how you're producing it, besides looking at how you then communicate this so-called healthy product. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. I think in terms of approaching government, I think all of our businesses have been around for a while. We know how government operates. There are ways to get to government. We normally would have to go through CAM, Kenya Association of Manufacturers. So yes, I mean, there are certain things we can do. I cannot go to the government and ask them to build me a road to northern Somalia or to the northern part of Kenya to get my bread product there. So those are things that the government needs to initiate from their side. I think in terms of nutrients, so I'll talk about nutrients in the wheat side. Why we do that is because by law we have to fortify flour now. So that is a reason why we have to add different nutrients, vitamins to the flour. So it's a law, it's not something that, and obviously it's beneficial to everybody to add fortification to products. But I think on the government front, there are different ways to go about it. I think to try and get a national change is very hard, but definitely working within the county you are in or the counties you operate. Some people give you leeway, some people don't. That's just the way that it happens for us, and that's the way that we deal with it.
Thanks for your questions. I think in Kenya, like for example, I talked about electricity. The electricity is actually national owned. So it's not privately owned, or we don't have so many companies. So we have to kind of rely on whatever they do. For example, we as True Foods, we've also put in solar. However, that is capital expenditure. And sometimes companies, maybe not as big as us, but smaller, cannot afford that. And I think in that circumstance, I think the government needs to help, because not everybody has access to the money or loans to fund all the expenditure, capital expenditure, to become private or to be reliant not on government but just on ourselves. So I think the government has a part to play. Yes, the government may not be here. Hopefully the video, which is live on YouTube, may go there, but we also have bodies like KAM, where we do lobby for certain things that are there. To your second thing regarding fortifications, I think when COVID happened, I think yes, we did come up with a no sugar added jam, which is healthier. I mean, jams generally have sugar. However, it has real fruit, so it is nutritious to the body, so it has fibers that helps. However, the amount of zinc that you put in is really relevant, and I think from your standpoint that's what is important. However, it has gone through a lot of bodies for it to be approved for us to put it in the market. So that exactly is what we did. But generally, just to answer you, I think a lot of companies all around the world are coming up with different products just to make sure that they are much better or different from the regular ones that we have in order to sell and in order to survive as an industry. And therefore, I think the innovation part is very critical in every company. And that innovation part, if we kill it, we will not be where we are today. So I feel it's very important to keep innovating.
Sorry, just to add on the solar aspect. So we have not yet put solar. One of the reasons is you cannot sell back solar to the government in this country. And again, that's something that would require government intervention to be able to then produce enough solar for ourselves, but then obviously then be able to sell it back to the government. So that's one of the reasons why we personally have not put solar up yet.
So I know, I take your comments very well, thank you very much. But I think we're not just looking to government. As a private sector, I think we've done major strides, reaching out to the government, reaching out to communities, reaching out to the consumers. We work with our stakeholders to develop an ecosystem that we can thrive in. And as an industry, as biofoods, we've reached out to our suppliers, help them grow, help them thrive, see the profitability that they can get to, see our consumers appreciate good products, not because I'm saying I'm selling calcium. I'm selling something that is nutritious for them. I'm saying something to them that I'm saying, I'm giving you a product that is safe, that is healthy, that is nutritious. I'm not well, we are marketing. We are a business. But at the end of the day, it is key for us as an industry, and not myself, but as everybody here with a company, it is about forward looking. It is about thriving, and it's about speaking up and making a voice heard. And I know we have been engaging government as well to be able to push policy for the better of our consumers.
You have something? No. Okay. Owen, you had a question? There's a mic coming. And we'll take both questions at the same time, and then we can answer and then wrap it up.
Yeah, thanks very much. I have many questions, but I'll just stick to two. Perhaps I'll make a comment before I do that. I get the feeling that there's a lot of defeatist feelings about, actually not defeatist, I think it's more isolation.
Skeptical.
Yes. Well, skeptical is not, it doesn't exactly describe. I think more protectionist, actually, of the market you're in and your businesses. And so the benefits that you can have, your customers can have by having competition in Africa, I think is not being recognized here. But two questions, though. One is what are you, as the food manufacturers, doing to valorize local ingredients? So ingredients that are consumed or traditionally produced locally, perhaps which would match more of the traditional sensory characteristics, preferences. And secondly, just sort of shifting away from that, what are your views on the regulation of salt and sugar, sodium and sugar in the products that you produce?
Okay, we'll take another, and then we can be able to answer at the same time. We'll take another one from behind there.
Thank you so much, and I want to appreciate the panelists. My name is Sheila Kilonzi. I'm a lecturer at Karatina University. I'm also the secretary to Kenya Institute of Food Science and Technology. And I appreciate that we are having young panelists. Maybe I'm not so much a youth, but just to start from there, yeah, I'm in between. Starting from there, you were young, and one of the things I've heard from True Foods is the issue of, even Bakex importing, the raw materials. And we're talking of the arable land we have in Kenya. And as a young person, I want to graduate today, and tomorrow I'm driving a car. Yes, like pop, I want to do things very, life to be very good and all that. And how are you going to engage the young people? Like, do you have even mentorship programs where we can have these young people, they can go there in farming? Like, are you willing then to now look at issues of contract farming, and what are the gaps if you are to engage the young people to go into farming? Like I can do my tomatoes, and if I know that True Foods is going to buy them, just engaging the right, what kind of tomatoes do you want, and the quality of that. Yes, are you engaging? Are you looking at that kind of an opportunity? And then the second thing is these young people we are teaching in the universities. I want to invite you to come in and Because the problems in Kenya are going to be solved by Kenyans. And we have minds in the universities, and we don't just want them to be trained and they are willing to come out there and they are going to get jobs, because that is not really the true picture as of now. So I want to invite you to come into us and we work together. Let's have like innovation moments where we can just have these students come up with innovations. True Foods can come and just fund us to just award them, and working together you can get that these students can even be a solution to your company. So I think we just want to bridge that gap, and for me it's very important. Thank you so much.
I think we'll take probably start with people are singling you out, Saga, because you're producing products that they probably eat a lot. So value addition using local ingredients. I think what are you guys doing?
So thank you very much. I'll answer the lady first before I forget. So basically, I thank you for your question. And what we do at True Foods, we do have partnerships with farmers where we go, where they come to our factories, we give them what is our quality standards, and then they go back and then they do produce. We do have red plums, pears, guavas, sweet corn, maize corn, so many things that we have farmers for, and I appreciate the fact that we can actually start having a program for young children where we can come and probably educate them on what is the things that we require, or what are the small things that they can do to probably plant, and we can start supporting them. Another thing that True Foods does on the side of the business is we do give internships or graduate trainees. We do recruit to just get some experience, not only just in production, but also supply chain, finance, all the different areas that we have in the company. So we do that on a yearly basis. Normally we do that in the beginning of the year, and then they stay with us for a few months. Before last year, we actually took over from the 30 different graduate trainees that we had. We actually took permanent, we took them on to True Foods, 20 of them. So we have those kind of programs which we can talk about later.
Devan, you have something to add?
Yeah, so again, for what we're doing with students, we actually sponsor a school in Thika. It's called Broadway High School. We've been sponsoring it since since 1999. And basically, children go through that school. We also then take on many children from that school and from other schools around as interns, as attachees. Some of them we sponsor then for higher education, and then we obviously track their progress, and then they have obviously a chance to come back and work with us in different departments. So we're very, very open to that. We're actually doing a lot more of that over the last few years. And we would also be very willing to come into any school, any institution, any university, and support in any way that we can. We started a sort of a drama club this year, where we've been to 10 schools already. We basically give them a script to produce a small play, and then we support them with that play. And then, you know, once we've done it, once they've shown it to us, they can obviously go and do it in other areas. So that's something that we're trying to do as well. In terms of buying local wheat, we do buy local wheat. Actually, there is a quota system through Cereal Millers Association that every single miller has to buy a certain amount of local wheat. We actually buy more than that on a number of over a number of years. Unfortunately, the problem is that the wheat grown here in Kenya can only be used for certain things in milling. It cannot be used for everything. And that is why we have to supplement with imported wheat. And also the price and the quality of the wheat here is not as good as what we would get from outside. Yes, we are working with farmers through the CMA, and trying to get more and more people to grow wheat to the standard that is required. So that's something that we're trying to do, but still at the moment, with all the millers in Kenya, there is just not enough wheat there to be able to sustain us. So we do have to import a portion of that wheat to basically supplement what we're growing locally.
Sugar. So Owen asked, what's your take on sugar? And all of us have a lot of sugar in our products, probably. Some have no sugar. So what's your take on these regulations and maybe what you're doing as a company? Probably this is a question that affects everyone. So we just give an answer to that, and then I think would have answered all the questions.
Firstly, I think what we got to realize in Africa is that we are not like the West. We don't have an obesity problem quite yet. Actually, our problem is a malnutrition problem. There are quite a few people that don't have access to 2 square meals a day. So, I mean, sugar, yes, we have to control it. We have to give a healthy product to people because diabetes, all of these things are a real issue. But I also think that we have to also look at the reality that when somebody consumes my energy drink, it's not because he feels that, oh, I just want that as a luxury item. But he's doing manual labor and he feels that he's going to get a kick of energy at a cheap price, which will help him to finish off the work that he's doing. I mean, I also don't recommend that they go and take 10 of my energy drinks in a day. But at the same time, I think it's important to realize the environment that we operate in and the circumstances that we do operate in.
Yes, so in terms of salt and sugar regulation, I think it's very, very important. I think there is no current law to state the amount of salt and sugar in products. You just have to state that your product has salt and sugar. And I think that's part of the issue. We would be very, very happy to state the amount of salt and sugar that we put in our product because from very, very early on, we've always believed on having the absolute least amount of these ingredients to make your product taste well, does taste good, but also looking at the health of the consumer. And I think, we'll be the first person, if that law is brought, to state the amount of salt and sugar that's there. Even if there isn't a law, we'd be very happy to do it, even from tomorrow. And in terms of, what we're doing to also counter that, to also educate people, we've been running a program called Be Sugar Smart for the last 6 years, where we are sensitizing people on the dangers of consuming too much added sugar. We've been screening for diabetes and hypertension around the country. We've screened over 20,000 people in 20 counties. So it's about sensitization, and it's not just about our bread. It's about every single product. Look at what's written. Yes, currently a lot of products don't have the quantities, but it will tell you what's in that product. And as more and more, we're growing a more healthy nation, more and more people are looking at that. So yeah, I mean, I'd be very, very welcome to having some sort of regulation around that.
Thank you for that question. I think it's very valid for not just Kenyans but Africans, because as the middle class grows, I think people are more educated to knowing the benefits or the disadvantages of having salt and sugar in their diet. As True Foods, what we do, I'll give you an example just that we did last year, is we felt that the sugar content and the salt content in our peanut butter was very high. And we started doing some trials in order to reduce that. And in fact, this year we've launched, not launched, but we redesigned or reformulated our peanut butter recipe in order to get to have less salt and less sugar. Not only is it less costly for us, but we're looking for making sure that our products are always good for the consumer and not just doing it without any intention of having bad health within the community. So at True Foods, we actually look into salt and sugar or whatever we put quite seriously in terms of how much we put. We also did the same for our sauces. and we're also doing the same for our jams. So consciously, although it's not a regulation, we're doing it for the better of the community.
Sorry. I just wanted to know, why did you choose to add sugar or salt to peanut butter in the first place? Because it's not required. It's not required. Peanut butter can be made and preserved without using any added sugar or salt. So why did you go down that route? This is my concern, that a lot of products which are being produced, automatically ingredients being added to it without looking at the consequences. Yes, we need to look at preservatives so that the shelf life of the product is going to be long enough, but at the same time, is it necessary to add certain things which are not benefiting the consumers or the health of us? Thank you.
Sorry, thanks. Yes, I do agree with you that peanut butter would not require. However, when we did our tastings within the company, with all the different ingredients that we did choose, with our formulated recipe, a little bit of salt and sugar gave that oomph to the peanut. That is what we wanted to bring out, because sometimes the salt does improve the level of the taste or the feel of the product, and that's the reason why we added that. However, of course, we're looking at reducing it.
Consumer champion, please give us your...
I have to stand up for this. To the lady who spoke about the youth, I love that. I love the fact that we can expose our youth to the possibilities of what they can do out there. Agriculture is so amazing. I can tell you, when I was younger, I didn't look at agriculture that way. But in my age, I can see the potential, what it can do for me. And we need to encourage our youth. And I'm really open to having university students, college students come in, see what we do at Bio, and make an informed decision on where you want to go. The potential is, mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. When you get out to the farm, oh God, I don't have time to talk about it. Farming is incredible. I can't take a djembe. Most of us know what a djembe is, a hoe. But I'm telling you, when you get out to the farms, you see the potential. And we need to cultivate that. Thank you. To the gentleman, I love the fact we need to valorize local ingredients. And we are encouraging that. I would rather buy local if I can source it. If you have a good ingredient, and I will encourage it, I will buy it off you. And that is how we build our industries. Support our suppliers. We're ready because it is within our control. It's within our control. Thank you.
Yes, I think we've come to the end of our morning panel.